Welcome to Voices from the Vineyard, where we share stories of faith, hope, and community from Valley Vineyard Church. Thanks for joining the conversation.
Well, welcome to our first episode of Voices from the Vineyard. I've had a desire of having a podcast here in our church, mainly to share people's stories with the church community, and just thought this was a good moment to start. And so we want to share stories from people on staff, people that serve, and leaders in our church with our church community, and then and beyond as well. And just thought this was a great opportunity to have Taylor Bellacetin, who's our new children's ministry director, who just started about a month ago. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to interview her and get to know her so that you all can just connect with her. It's a hard thing to go into a new church community, and it takes a while to get to know everybody. So I thought this was a great way for us to hear her story and be able to you can get to know her better through this. So welcome, Taylor. Thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be your first guest.
Yeah, it's great. So you've started with the first week for September, right? Second day of September, I believe. And it's just been great. You've been a great addition to our staff team.
Thank you.
I've told our other staff members that you just bring a great voice into our current staff dynamic. And so it's just been great to get to know you, hear your heart, and I think one of your strengths for me has been just your way of communicating, and even in hard situations, you're very thoughtful. So I just appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So part of this is wanting to learn about people's stories, and so we want to start from the beginning, and because we all grew up somewhere, we all have a story, and so can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your childhood was like?
Yeah. So I grew up in the San Fernando Valley. I grew up not far from here, about 5 minutes away, and grew up with my mom, my dad, and my sister, my little sister. And growing up, I think the church and faith and God were really big pieces of just my upbringing. Mm-hmm. I was raised in the church. My mom was involved in children's ministry. She was the children's director for a long time, for really at all the churches that we grew up at. And so as early as I possibly could, I started volunteering with kids. I've always had a heart for kids and families. Growing up, I really feel like our childhood was good. Faith and the church were big pieces of that. My sister and I, for my sister all the way through elementary, but for me, my entire education outside of college was at Christian schools. And so both at church and outside of church, faith were really big pieces of that. And I was involved in lots of different things. Some sports. My sister has always been more athletic, for sure. And that's an understatement. But I've always loved just creative things. I have always loved writing and things like that. And so growing up, I was involved in a lot of those different things as well.
It's great. It's good. You're actually an actual Valley girl. You grew up here in the Valley.
Yes, I am. People say that, and there are parts of it I don't take, but yes, I am born and raised in the Valley. So yes, that makes me a Valley girl.
You don't say like a lot.
I try not to. Yeah.
All right. What are some things you enjoy doing in your free time that people may not expect, maybe, but they do talk about your heart and personality? What are some of those things?
Yeah, I love being creative. I really enjoy any chance I get to work with my hands. I love writing, creative writing, spoken word. I don't have as much free time now with a 2-year-old, but when I do have free time, I love just pouring into things like that. I really more recently have enjoyed reading. I think in school, I didn't enjoy reading because it was required, but now that I get to do it and now that I enjoy doing it, I really enjoy reading. And then with my family, I love spending time with my family. We love being outside, and our daughter loves being outside, which I think encourages us to get out more. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think as far as what speaks to my heart, like I said, free time is not something I have as much of now. But I think one of the things that I love to do, my daughter has complex needs and disabilities, as you know, and I love being her advocate. I love stepping into that work. And so I think that speaks to my heart. But yeah, I think sometimes my free time is that, and I'm thankful that I get to do that.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, Taylor has amazing handwriting. Yesterday, I was commenting about it at our staff meeting. You were writing and maybe doodling, and I was like, "That looks like art." And I told you I was jealous because I have the worst handwriting ever, and I wanted to be a doctor as a kid, and I had that down, the handwriting. So.
You're like, we have that figured out.
I had that, that's something that's usually needed for doctors. When
Poor writing.
Poor writing. So you said you grew up in the church. Your mom was a children's director as well for many years, but I'm sure you didn't grow up saying, "I want to be like my mom one day." I'm sure there's a journey, there's a story to how you first sense God's calling into, first of all, ministry, but ultimately children, being with children and families. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So like you were saying, it wasn't my dream to be a children's director. Not because I didn't love seeing what my mom did, it more was just, that just wasn't what I thought I would be doing. I, from an early age, knew I wanted to work with kids. For a while, I thought I would be doing that through being in the NICU. And so for a really long time, I was convinced that that's the avenue that I was going to take. And so I remember, growing up, having a heart for that. And then I worked for a summer at Hume Lake. And that summer, I really just began praying about where God was calling me. I was convinced that that's where God was calling me, into working in hospitals and working in the NICU. And then it wasn't until that summer that I really began to ask him if that's what he had for me. And so prayed that summer and really still felt convinced that that's the work I was going to be doing. And then I remember coming home that summer, and a mentor of mine at the time came over to my parents' house that night. And we were just talking, and she was like, "I really feel like God is calling you to teach." And I remember being very upset because
it wasn't a blessing when you first heard it.
No, because I really felt she was someone, still is someone who I know God speaks through her for other people. Okay. And so it felt like confirmation. It felt like that's what God was calling me to do, but I did not accept it initially. And then within a couple months of her sharing that, I began working with a kiddo with autism. His parents hired me to work one-on-one with him at a preschool, and then stepped into teaching at that preschool. And since then have worked in just different capacities with kids. And so I don't know when I felt like it was an official calling. But I know I've always had a heart for kids. And then I think probably that summer was when I got confirmation that, this was the avenue I was meant to step into. And then in 2019, my brother-in-law, my husband's brother, had just shared that his church was looking to hire a children's director. And I was looking for work, but I didn't know that if that's what I was going to be doing. And so I remember him sharing, and I just said, "Oh, that's good to know that your church is looking." And he's like, No, I'm asking if you would like to apply. And so I told him we would pray about it, and it was far. And so I remember making a list of like pros and cons, because that's how my brain works. And there were all these pros, and the only con was distance. And so I was like, well, this might be where God's calling us. Giuseppe, my husband, was felt very strongly about it. And so I was like, all right, let's step into this. And so, since 2019, even a little bit before that, I've been working in children's ministry at churches, and I love it. It's, again, different than what I thought I would be doing. And it's just been so neat to see just how God has worked on my heart in that to just encourage me in stepping into this space. And I'm excited to be doing that here now.
It's interesting how there's usually desires in our hearts and things we'd like to do, and then God kind of confirms it. Yeah. But it is a journey. It takes time. Even after you heard that as, oh, okay, God, you sense God saying this is what you're gonna do. It still takes time to get there. And I think usually the first thing we kind of react with is fear or uncertainty of, yes, there's a calling, but it's a hard thing to do. It's not easy. Serving God and people is not always easy. And stuff. So, and so we've been on a search to have a children's ministry director here for quite some time. It was a long search, and I think just the timing of your name coming up was just way, like, I think it's a God thing as well. And but you were transitioning from another church community. This was the time that we needed someone. So it's like God is orchestrating things, but even like a calling is not always easy. Transitions aren't always easy as well. And so, you've only been here a little over a month. My question is, I'm always thinking about how does an outsider experience us, right? Or somebody, like when you live in a house, you live with it, you get used to it. This is how we do things. This is where everything's at. But we don't have eyes, because we're so used to it, to see what are some good things, what are some things that need tweaking and stuff. And so I like to ask that question of people when they first come, like, what are some things, what are you noticing? A lot of times people ask, what's the vision? What's the culture of the church? And the culture is simply something that people feel without even you communicating it. And so just with that, my question to you is, like, in this short time that you've been with us, what are the things that excite you as you've kind of started, or you've transitioned to this church, you're working with a new staff? What are the things that so far have excited you? I know right now it's like a honeymoon stage that everything might feel better than it is, but I'm just curious, what are the things that excite you?
Yeah. I think one of the first things that I noticed, and I remember being in interviews with you and Mike and both of you just talking about how much of a family this is. And like you're saying, a culture is experienced, not necessarily what people say, but I remember very quickly feeling that. I know that this is a family. I remember our first Sunday, I had gotten to know you all. I had a staff meeting prior to that. And so I knew the team, but it was my first Sunday, and immediately the first Sunday that I was here, people just came up, just excited to meet us, excited that we were here, and already were asking how they could support us. And so I think family is the first thing I think of.
And you mentioned your family, like, how long have you been married? And then, the age of say, so that people can know just what your family unit consists of.
Yeah. So my husband Giuseppe and I got married at 19 and 20. I was 19, he was 20, which every time I say it is crazy to me.
Now you're going to reveal your age with mathematics.
Yeah. Add about 10 years. We've been married for about 10 years, a little over 10 years in June.
Oh, okay.
Getting married that young is wild. We didn't realize how wild it was at the time. And we've had people ask, like, oh, would you suggest getting married that young? Not to everybody, but we had community around us that I think knew that this was good, and that God was in our relationship. And so I'm very thankful for that. And still we've had community that has just come around us through different chapters. And one of those chapters has brought us to our daughter. We always knew we wanted to be parents. I, from a very young age, probably since I was 2 or 3, knew I wanted to be a mom. And then when we first started really considering and talking about having kids, we pretty quickly were met with infertility. And adoption was always something that we talked about. We just didn't know the timing of it. We knew we wanted to have kids. We thought maybe we would have a couple of kids naturally and then adopt. And then God revealed pretty quickly that adoption was going to happen sooner than we expected. And so we stepped into the adoption process in 2020, which was a wild time.
A year that we all will remember.
Yeah. And stepping into that, it just was such a humbling experience. there were things that we believed about adoption or thought we knew about adoption, and God just shifted some of those things. And then in 2022, we were matched with our daughter's birth mother, and just grew to just love her and her family. And then in 2023, our daughter was born a month early. We met her. We got a call from our social worker, and she just had shared, or she called, and I saw her name pop up on my phone, and I was like, oh, she's probably just calling to check in. And she very calmly shared that we should get on a plane and head to Florida. She was like, yeah, your daughter's going to be born. And so that night we got on a plane and we headed to Florida, and we met her the next day. And so she is now 2.5, and like I mentioned before, has complex needs and disabilities. We didn't know when we first said yes to her birth mom that she would. And then in 2024, I believe, we got her first diagnosis of epilepsy, and then shortly after found out she had cerebral palsy. And so it's been such a journey. I've had a heart for disability for such a long time.
It's
and
amazing
so,
when I've heard that God put that in you way before all of this. And in a sense, not that you could always be fully prepared for this, but your heart was already in that posture of just, this is a calling and something that you want to advocate for. Yeah.
And then I remember having a feeling that we knew she had some developmental delays. And so we reached out to regional center pretty quickly, and there were some disability diagnoses that I was familiar with. And so I was like, okay, maybe it's this or this or this. And then it was none of those things. And so, like you said, there's some preparation, but then I always compare it to reading a parenting book and then having kids. So different.
I read all of them before I had kids, and
it helps like this much, and then you just learn. And so I mean, having worked in that field for so long, and having my background, I have a bachelor's in early childhood education. Those things helped. And then having a child was so different than all of that. And so even with her disability, there are things that books will tell you, and different resources to apply for and things like that. But stepping into it is just so different. And again, I'm thankful that this is what I get to do.
Yeah, she's so precious.
Thank you.
Beautiful eyes, and I got to carry her this past Sunday, which was amazing.
She's so sweet.
We were talking about just what are some of the things you're excited about here at the church. You said family. Is there anything else you'd like to share? Because I think that's important for people in our church to just know new set of eyes. This is what I'm feeling as I come into this church community.
Yeah, I think again a lot of people just have asked like how they can support our family both on Sundays and outside of Sundays. Wow. I know there have been people who very quickly have offered to just support us in different ways, and so again that family piece is so big. And then I think also what I'm excited about, and something that I hadn't experienced before, is just the way that the whole church leadership, you, Mike, the team, and then the congregation really want to come around our family specifically with our daughter's diagnosis and with her disabilities. I've seen churches, I've been at churches where that isn't the case. And I believe that if you don't see a family and you don't see their child's diagnosis or their disability, then you aren't seeing the full scope of who they are. And so I've just been really thankful for that. People who have been curious about what her diagnosis is, and then also how to support her specifically, because having a disability is different from one kiddo to another. And so I think that just has been so sweet to see just how intentional this church is about wanting to serve the people here, because even having a children's ministry is great, but ministries are more than just programs. And so I think it's
easy to think about things as programs.
Absolutely.
Like this is how things should be done.
Yeah.
But it's way more than that, like you said.
Right. Yeah. Even seeing like, hey, we have a children's ministry, so we're meeting the need. That's a beautiful thing if you have a ministry, but what do, like you're saying, what do the people in the church feel? And so I've just been so impressed by just the intentionality with seeing our family, and also checking in with my husband. I know you and I talked about wanting to connect with him, and that I think was missing for us. And so I've been really thankful just to see just, again, on staff and outside of staff, how many people have wanted to come around our family.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it's been a God thing of having you come in at the time that we actually needed. Mike Vitello, who served here for a little more than 2 years, 2.5. He wanted to be done by 2, but then extended. He said just his heart of saying, I want to be here until we find the right person.
Yeah.
But then towards where things were moving along, he gave us a date, and like you came like a month before that, and obviously the process took some time, and it was around that time that like God even honored him in that way as well, and we're just so thankful for him holding down the fort for many for a few months after he had mentioned that he wanted to transition. So that's really cool. But so as you come in, like what are your thoughts in regards to children ministry? What are some things you'd like to see or kids experience on Sundays?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I really have a heart for is just family involvement in children's ministry. I know that's something, again, that when we were even in the interview process that you had shared, also having a heart for just families and parents knowing what their kids are learning about, being supported by the children's director. And so I'm excited about that. And I think also one thing I'm excited about too is just and hopeful that kids will experience is just a sense of belonging. Kids who have disabilities and kids who don't, that they would just know that they can come and just be a part of what God's doing here. And also with families, there are so many just different there's a diverse group of families here. And so how, again, can we serve those families specifically? And I'm excited just to learn about them and learn about more about the church culture and also the culture of the community that surrounds Valley Vineyard. And I think belonging is a word that I think about a lot.
You were talking about something that I remember during the interview process, like we were talking about children's ministry, but you don't just have a heart for the children, you have a heart for families. And I think that's really cool because it's not just the needs of people under or a certain age and stage, but it applies to how can we resource families in different ways. And the other thing that just impressed me was your heart for disabilities. My wife Allie and I just have a heart as well for that. And many years ago, we had many families and kids, with disabilities, and my heart was just sensitive to these needs around us, and it was hard as a children's ministry to kind of come around it with the church. Our church is not huge in size and stuff, and but my heart was like, can we just give these parents an hour and a half a week where they don't have, because you're constantly on, where they can worship the Lord and know that their kids are going to be safe and blessed. And that's a hard thing. I'm sure for many churches, but that desire has been there. I don't have the ability to champion that as the lead pastor, but now having someone with your heart here is just amazing, because I saw the seeds of that, 5 years ago, seeing we had like at least 8-10 families at that point. And just how can we serve? How can and so I'm just excited about that. So this kind of goes into the next question I have for you is like, if you had unlimited resources, like what would be your dream of how we could serve children and families in our church and our surrounding community as well?
Yeah, I think one thing I just was really impressed by, even in the interview process and looking at your website and things, was just how much community involvement you were already doing. And so I think as far as what we will continue to do, I think that's something that I just am excited to see, because I think that's a big piece of supporting the community. I think it's great when people come on Sundays, and it would be great to grow that as well. And I think the first step is meeting needs and supporting families, whether that's on a Sunday, if they come on a Sunday, but also inviting people just onto this campus through things like you've been doing of movie nights or backpack drives, just ways of meeting the needs of the community here. I think sometimes, again, we have these grand plans, and sometimes they aren't actually supporting the people that we want them to support. And so looking at the surrounding area, looking at the community, even asking them, hey, what would be supportive? And it seems like you all are already stepping into that. And so you sent me these questions before, and I remember like reading them, and I was looking at this one, and I really just feel excited about what's already happening. I think as far as continuing, I think one of the things, again, that I just would love to see grow, and you were speaking to it, is just disability, inclusivity, belonging in that space as well. You were speaking to it, but having families who have kids with disabilities able to drop off their kid and know that there is safety, but then also to know that their child is also being just involved and included in worship. I think safety is a great starting point. And then what you were saying of also the kids being blessed by what God is doing here. And so I've just been excited about your openness. I know you were saying you can't necessarily be like the champion of that, but just the fact that you have desire for that, and also that the team has a desire for that, I think that makes it a lot easier for someone in my position who wants to do that work to be able to step into it, because there already is just those seeds that have already been planted. And so I'm excited just to see what happens with that.
Yeah. And just, again, I have had the desire for it, and having you come with a huge calling and heart for this has influenced me even more. I mean, I've even asked you, give me some books to read, and I've started that journey as well to keep growing in this world of how we can not just provide a safe place, but also like celebrate areas that maybe culture might not see as worthy of celebrating or whatever, but like that everybody's made in the image of God, and everybody is able to contribute in a church setting or even in community, right? But like, it's not just, there's also something that they can contribute, and the beauty is seeing it and experiencing it and stuff. Yeah. And so that's still a journey I want to continue on learning. I guess, how can we as Valley Vineyard support you and your family and the children's ministry as you come on? You know, this is just a way of sharing your heart, and like, how can we come alongside of that? Because it's not. Sometimes I feel like some people you focus on kids when you have your own kids, then they get older and you're like, I'm done. Yeah. But I feel like we have to have a desire for the next generations. And so how can we continue growing in that as a church community, but then also support you as you start this process with us? Yeah.
I think one of the things that I've already just felt so much support around is, again, support for our daughter. Our first week, we had her in service with us. My mom actually came and ended up taking her out of service because she was wanting to move a little bit. But very quickly, I just started asking people if they would say yes to being a one-on-one for her and being a buddy for her. And so last Sunday, Rhoda had said yes. And so she had Selah in the nursery. And so that just was such a gift to us, like you were saying, for families to be able to attend service. So we were able to sit in service. Like I said, Selah's 2.5. That was only our second time sitting in service, just us. But it was such a gift. And so I think that's a great support. I know your wife, Allie, has also said yes to stepping into that. And so really excited, I think, for that. So I think that's a great way to support our family. Also, I think in general, just checking in. I've seen that already. So that's just an encouragement to continue doing it, but checking in on us, checking in on my husband. I think being on a staff at a church, I think there's already a team of people who are checking in on me, but checking in on him too. That's very important. And again, I know the team is, the staff is already doing that. As far as supporting children's ministry, that's a great question. I think one of the ways that I see that is just, again, saying yes to stepping in. I think sometimes in children's ministry, people think that they have to have a gift for teaching. And there are other areas in children's ministry that people can step into, whether it's assisting in the classroom, again, being a buddy. Obviously, my daughter right now is one child that I've identified, obviously naturally, as her mom, who has needs and has needs for some support. There are other people in our church and other people who hopefully will come to our church who also have a need for that one-on-one support. So yeah, I think just saying yes. Also, with that yes, learning what the needs are. But I've just been even just encouraged at just how many volunteers are already in children's ministry, and excited just to see that grow. And have been just impressed by the people who have said yes and want to continue to just figure out what this community needs, again, within Valley Vineyard, but also the surrounding areas as well.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not just about meeting the immediate need. It's also getting ready for what the Lord might do and bring to us and start that process. Again, like the calling takes time. It's a journey to get to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's a calling and journey to get to that place where we're able to welcome and receive
absolutely
those who the Lord is bringing to us. And I want to end by I know you have a heart for disability, and it goes beyond the ministry here at the church, and you've recently started a nonprofit. And so would you let us know a little bit about that? So if somebody wants to grow in that and just know more about it, just some of the things you could share about that.
Yeah. One of the things that I have always just had a desire to do is to step into advocacy through partnering with churches and also partnering with families. I think about 7 years ago, I really had a heart and a desire to step in and walk alongside churches as they grow disability ministries. And then now as a parent, I have an even bigger heart for that work, but also individualized family support. And so in June, I really started pouring into my nonprofit. It's called The Seat at the Table. And really it was born from a desire. Can you tell us a little bit why
you named it that way?
Yeah. It really was born from a desire just to invite families to come. I think sometimes there are spaces, or a lot of times there are spaces that families with disabilities aren't included in. And so not only do we have a table, but there's a seat for you. And so I think, having been able to pour into this for really intentionally the past 3 months has just been such an encouragement to me. I know I've talked to other people in other churches who are just excited to step into this. And it really was born from a desire just to come alongside people, whether they're parents who are doing advocacy work or churches who want to step into that. And so, as far as support for that, I think if there are people who are listening who want to just learn about how to advocate or learn about how to include families like mine, I would love to just share more. But I'm excited.
Where can somebody, learn more? How can they contact you? Where can they find more information? Or even if somebody has a heart to give towards this, that's also a huge need to be able to have resources to be able to help. So how can somebody help or find out more about your organization?
So as far as contacting me, if you attend Valley Vineyard, you can find my email. But also I am on Instagram at A Seat at the Table Ministries. My email for my nonprofit is aseatatthetableministries@gmail.com, which is a mouthful, but that's where you can find me. And then on Sundays, if you're here, I would love to just connect with you on a Sunday. And then, the 3 areas that I really ask for support are sharing, praying, and giving. So like you mentioned, if there are people who want to give, there's space for that. Also praying just for this ministry. It's a nonprofit, but it's also a ministry. And really the desire is to meet the needs of people in the community. And so one of the ways that we do that is through finances, but also praying for the families, praying for the churches. I think, again, I've just been really grateful to see how open Valley Vineyard is to meeting this need, but then also prayer that other churches would also have the humility to say, hey, this is a need, and maybe we aren't meeting it to the best of our abilities. And so stepping into that. But I would love to share more with people if they're interested in learning more. then, yeah, I've just been grateful that you have asked for books and resources. I think those are also great things. And so, whatever resources I can provide people with, I would love to step into that.
Great. Well, Taylor, I really thank you for being our first person here that we interviewed today. And it's been a joy to just get to know you and G, your husband. It's the shortened for,
Yes, G is the easier.
The easier way of saying his name, and Say short for your daughter as well. And it's been great connecting with them as well. And we're just excited and thankful for your lives here with us. And so just thank you for being here. And I just pray that this church would be just a blessing for you as you minister, as you work out the calling that God has given to you, that it would also be a blessing to you and your family.
Yeah.
And so, Valley Vineyard folks, pray for Taylor, her family, and just what we want to do here at the Valley Vineyard. So thank you for listening today, and see you at our next episode.
Stories of faith, hope, and community from Valley Vineyard Church. Thanks for joining the conversation.